That both campaigns in 2016 wanted some dirt on each other and were willing to get it in some sources from Russia. But now there's a judge who wants to know exactly how the whole thing worked on the Clinton side of the equation. The dossier, as we know, was funded in part by the Clinton campaign and used sources in Russia who gave information to Christopher Steele, much of which he said was unverifiable. So on the Trump side, you've got the Trump Tower meeting in June of 2016. And tonight, former Trump lawyer Michael Cohen reportedly dropping more bombs. Now he says that the president knew all along about that meeting, even though Cohen said the opposite in the past. So here's what the president said about it today. I did not, in caps, know of the meeting with my son, Don Jr. Sounds to me like someone is trying to make up stories. He even retained Bill and Crooked Hillary's lawyer. Gee, I wonder if they helped him make the choice. Here now, Greg Jarrett, Fox News anchor and author of the new book, The Russia Hoax, who knows this story inside and out. Greg, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Tonight. So let's start with the Fusion side of this, because they've been very tight-lipped about who their sources were for the dossier. But now this judge is trying to give them, have them deposed on it. What are we going to learn there?
Well, the head of Fusion GPS, Glenn Simpson, testified that he hired Christopher Steele to get dirt on Trump. The dossier was the product. 17 memos. I've read them all. I laugh every time. It's absurd, fabricated, anonymous, quadruple hearsay. If you tried to present it in a court of law legitimately, the judge would toss you out or toss you in jail. That use of the dossier, if paid for by the Clinton campaign and not properly accounted for, could be, at a minimum, a civil violation of the Federal Campaign Election Act. At worst, could actually be money laundering.
Yeah. Here's Jake Tapper talking about this topic. Let's take a listen. I want to ask you something about this.
Here's the bottom line. The United States was attacked. The United States was attacked by Russia. Now, it wasn't like Pearl Harbor. It was a cyber attack. And there are a whole bunch of people in Washington who are trying to prevent the investigation from going forward. Imagine if somebody tried to prevent the investigation into how Pearl Harbor happened from going forward. You would say that that person is not being patriotic.
Well, if that is true, then it's also unpatriotic to not understand the dossier side of the equation, where they clearly had sources in Russia who were trying to dig up dirt and sell it as part of the campaign, correct?
Absolutely. I mean, this dossier was the basis for the investigation of Donald Trump. On the day that Comey cleared Hillary Clinton, secretly his FBI was in a building in London meeting for the first time with the author of the dossier, Christopher Steele. Armed with that totally phony, fabricated document, they then launched the investigation, as I argue in my book, to frame Donald Trump for things he didn't do, for crimes he didn't commit. Collusion is not even a crime in a political campaign. It's nowhere in the criminal codes.
All right. So now Michael Cohen says of the Trump side of the equation that President Trump knew about that meeting. Don Jr. said, I didn't bother my father with these people coming from Russia. They wanted to talk about the Magnitsky Act, which is not a light thing. That's a very serious thing that these people have been pursuing for a long time. So now Michael Cohen says, according to these stories, President Trump knew about it. What if he did?
It doesn't matter. So
Why?
what? Even if the president, let's assume the president is lying and he knew about it. It's not a crime to lie to the media. If it were otherwise, just about every politician in Washington would be behind bars. The meeting itself, and I devote a chapter to this, it's entitled, It's Not a Crime to Meet with a Russian. There is no criminal code violation. It's not a violation of the Federal Campaign Election Act, which specifically says foreign nationals may participate in American campaigns. They can attend meetings. They can open their mouths. They can provide information.
All right. So let's take a look at what Michael Cohen said about this back at the time when the June 2016 meeting first came to light. Mike and Donald Trump Jr. said, here's my transaction, here's my emails that I sent back and forth. These people said that they had dirt on Hillary Clinton. He said, oh, if that's true, I'd love to hear it. But then when they got there, according to his story, all they wanted to talk about was the Magnitsky Act, which I think adds up because that is what they want lifted.
Sure.
That's what Vladimir Putin wants lifted. He says, so proud of Donald Trump Jr. for being open, honest, and transparent to the American people. This nonsense needs to stop. Now he is telling a different story.
Catherine Herridge, our own Catherine Herridge, interviewed the Russian lawyer. And she said, we didn't talk about Hillary Clinton. that whole email setting up the meeting was nothing but a pretext, you know.
It was a way to get the meeting.
Yeah, exactly. But the Russians could actually publish in Pravda, the Communist Party newspaper, a story about Hillary Clinton and corruption replete with documents, and any American campaign would be allowed legally to use that. It would be of vital American interest. It's protected by the First Amendment. It's not a crime.
All right. So, you know, what I'm seeing is that on both sides of this equation, you have two campaigns who were willing to accept some information. Donald Trump Jr. thought that he was going to get some dirt and said, oh, well, if that's, you know, if you have something, come on over and tell me what you have. And on the Clinton side, they paid Fusion GPS to get Russian sources through Christopher Steele to dig up dirt on Donald Trump. What's the difference
on the Clinton side? It could be a crime, depending upon how the money was handled and whether it was accounted for. There was no money exchanged on the Trump side. So why isn't there an investigation of Hillary Clinton and her campaign and the Democrats for hiring a foreign national and paying money?
So, I mean, I would assume, based on what Jake Tapper said there, that he would be pursuing it, because not to would be unpatriotic, correct?
Correct.
Thank you, Greg. Good to see you. The book is called The Russian Hoax, and it came out this week. Really good.
Thank
you so much, Greg. Good to see you tonight. So coming up this evening, they have waited 65 years for their soldiers and Marines to be home again after the Korean War. Our next guest says he has been tearing up all day at the thought that this day may finally come. But first, Larry Nassar says that he was attacked in prison because of this.
Sir, I'm giving you 175 years, which is 2,100 months. I just signed your death warrant.
Said, I just signed your death warrant. His attorneys now want a new judge and a new sentence. Nassar's first victim, Sarah Kellen, is breaking her silence in her first national TV interview tonight with her reaction to that.
America's News Headquarters, I'm Trace Gallagher. Strong winds are creating problems for firefighters battling the Carr Fire in Northern California. It's already claimed 2 lives. Mandatory evacuations remain in effect for the city of Shasta Lake and its 10,000 residents. Nearly 5,000 homes are threatened. 55 have already been destroyed in Shasta Lake. The fire has already burned nearly 45,000 acres, and it's only 3% contained. The Carr Fire began Monday. Twitter stock plunging more than 20% today. Twitter's decline follows a $190 billion loss by Facebook yesterday. The social media company says monthly users dropped in the second quarter, adding further declines are expected in the next few months. This is Twitter's second largest one-day loss since going public in 2013. If news breaks out, we'll break in. I'm Trace Gallagher. Now back to the story.
Perhaps you have figured it out by now, but little girls don't stay little forever. They grow into strong women that return to destroy your world.
You are a sick man, Larry. I hope you rot in prison, because that's where you belong.
Your Honor, I ask you to give Larry the strongest possible sentence which his actions deserve. Let this sentence strike fear in anyone who thinks it is okay to hurt another person. Abusers, your time is up.
Sir, I'm giving you 175 years, which is 2,100 months. I just signed your death warrant.
I just signed your death warrant, she said. Judge Rosemarie Aquilina was one of the many powerful moments after the long journey to justice for more than 150 survivors of the person they thought of as a doctor to the gymnast, Larry Nassar. Now, the disgraced former USA Gymnastics and Michigan State University team doctor says that those words, signed your death warrant, led to the serial sexual predator's assault when he arrived in prison. And because of that, he wants a new sentencing and a new judge. Joining me now exclusively in her first nationally televised interview is Sarah Klein, the first brave survivor in all of this to speak out. Sarah, welcome. It is good to have you here today. Your reaction to what he says happened to him when he got to prison, and the fact that he wants a new sentencing, new judge.
Absolutely not surprised. Larry is a master manipulator. He abused hundreds of women for a span of 3 decades. So this is just typical Larry. He's a prisoner. He has 60 years on his federal sentence, and what does a prisoner want more than anything? To get out of prison. sooner. So he's 54 years old. He's not getting out, and we are not surprised in the least at his manipulation.
It's no surprise, as you say, that his attorneys also, who I'm sure want to be paid for, more of their work as they go through this, that they say, well, we're going to try to get you, a new sentencing, a new judge. What did you think of that judge as you watched all of this play out and the way that she handled the case?
She handled the case extremely dignified. These are little girls who have been through a lot. And she gave us the opportunity to speak up, use our voices. And during that week, there was a momentum that built, and there was healing that took place there. And she did it with her head held high.
So tell me about you, because initially you spoke out as a Jane Doe. You did not want to be identified.
Yes.
And you were not a professional gymnast. You were a gymnast who was, working out and learning the sport.
Yep.
When he took advantage of you at what age?
8 years old.
8 years old.
Through 25 years old. 17 years of abuse, 3 to 4 times a week, every year for, almost 2 decades.
How do you cope with that?
You know what? I'm a mother now. I have a daughter who's 2 years old, and there's a lot of healing that comes with that. Being able to speak out, use my voice on behalf of her and all of the other little girls out there who just want to have fun, want to participate in sports. It was time for me to come forward and time for me to speak up.
You were so young, and you were, I'm sure, told that this was a treatment, like he told everyone else.
Correct.
Right? So you don't even understand anything about sexuality at the age that this is beginning.
Correct.
For you, right?
Correct.
So as you were getting older, how did you deal with this reality? And did you try to get anyone to stop it? What did you think?
It took me a long time to understand that the man I loved, the man I trusted, the man whose wedding I danced at was actually, harming me, and it wasn't actually medical treatment. So it took a long time, a lot of therapy, and really sort of growing into an adult woman to even recognize what had happened to me for all of those years.
And did you ever confront him? How did you begin the confrontation process?
I confronted Larry for the first time in January in Judge Aquilina's courtroom. And he immediately knew it was me. Our paths had not crossed since I was 25 years old. I'm now 38 years old. And I walked up to that podium and looked him in the eyes, and he just began to shake his head.
He knew.
He knew.
Sarah, thank you very much. Good to have you with us tonight.
Thank
I
you.
give you a lot of credit. And all of you who have spoken out have made the sport, I hope, safer for all of these young women who are coming into it now. Thank you for being here tonight.
Appreciate it.
So joining me now is Mark Eiglarsh, criminal defense attorney. Mark, good to have you with us this evening. You heard Sarah telling her story and how she felt that judge was very professional and acted with great integrity during the course of all of that. Does Larry Nassar have any axe to grind that is legitimate with regard to this judge?
No. While very arguably Judge Judy-esque at times, what she did was not unlawful. Her saying things like, I wouldn't let my dog near you, or you're a danger to the community, are things that she said after or as she was hearing testimony from victims who courageously got up there and told what they said. Legally, if you can prove that the judge knew that she was going to give a life sentence prior to even hearing the testimony, then you've got a shot. But I didn't see any comments that evidences that state of mind.
And it is not at all unusual. I mean, Larry Nassar's in a class by himself, but predators of this kind often do not have an easy time of it when they land in prison, correct?
That's correct. The defense is claiming it was the judge's demonizing of Larry Nassar that caused him to be attacked in prison. Listen, he demonized himself through his actions, and then the victims got up there and let the world know what he did. The only good thing about prison is that there's a pecking order, and people like Larry Nassar who prey on children, they're at the bottom.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it just seems, as you say, to be a very thin thread to suggest that words that the judge used during the sentencing phase of this whole thing somehow have an impact on the individuals who happen to be behind bars, who I doubt really had an opportunity to see any of it.
Listen, You're spending the rest of your life in prison. If you have some money, it's of no use to you in prison. You might as well spend it on lawyers who, even if they have like a lottery ticket chance of winning, let them file this motion and see if there's anything in the record that supports what he's alleging. It at least gives him some hope for the period of time that he's in there being brutalized.
Yeah, no doubt. The attorneys, every attorney wants to tell someone in this situation or anyone who's been convicted and is going to do time that there's one more thing we might be able to pull off, right? There's one more way that we might be able to, with all due respect to your profession.
I do not want to demonize these attorneys. Let me make something clear. Maybe they did sense that this judge was going to sentence him to the max. I'm guessing that's how she felt. It's just they have to be able to have the comments to prove it. Something that she said maybe early on that evidenced that she was not going to be fair. I don't think they have it here.
Mark, thank you very much. Good to see you. And Sarah,
thanks, Martha.
Thanks again
have a great
to
weekend.
you. Good to see you both. Coming up right here on The Story, North Korea makes good on a promise to President Trump as families hope for closure from the North Korean war. We will talk to two men who were just little boys whose fathers never came home from that war about what this day could mean for them. And then a final chapter, we hope, perhaps, on plastic straws in jail time as the city speaks out. Tammy Bruce, Lisa Booth, and Kat Tim, all straight ahead in our Friday Friends coming up.
Yeah, but what about people who want straws? Just people who want them.
Yeah, people.
Plastic straws.
Yeah, I think what the core of it is not really about necessarily the straw. It's about the plastic for single use.